What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 21 of The PlayStation Effect. I'm your host, Marco. Joining me is my good friend and co-host, Pablo, and each week we explore the past, present, and future of PlayStation. And in this episode, PlayStation's physical disc scandal is getting worse, and we're here to talk about it. Then, we'll think back on happier times with PlayStation and reveal our Mount Rushmores of all things PlayStation. So get settled, get situated, subscribe, and let's get started. Now look, man, we talked about the whole physical disc situation a few episodes ago, and we did make a pledge to the listeners that we would return to the subject again when there's new developments. And needless to say, the backlash is not dying down because we are a few weeks removed from Sony's wildly controversial decision to end physical disc production in 2028. And not only has Sony outright refused to back down, but the situation is getting a bit worse with 4 major developments impacting PlayStation consumers and even their industry partners. So we're going to start with the big story, and that is tech YouTubers Moore's Law is Dead discovered that Sony has deployed a coordinated social media bot campaign to artificially counter the public backlash over phasing out those physical discs. And to support his claim, he highlighted a sudden wave of recently created accounts featuring AI-generated profile pictures, synchronized posting schedules, and even highly corporate-sounding language used to basically passionately defend this digital-only future, all in an effort to more or less manufacture a false consumer consensus, Pablo. And I got to get your take on this because this is quite a strategy. So where are you at with this one?
It's villainous. It's one of these things where you hope it's not real, right? You hope it's just one of those things that people are kind of making up, but the proof is in the pudding there. And it looks like Sony is coming out in all counterattack, trying to kind of sway people's opinions with fake accounts. It's absolutely horrible. And it's like egg on their face. And did they think nobody was going to figure this out? I mean, there's pretty savvy people online and they're looking for this kind of behavior. So I'm shocked, honestly.
Yeah. To me, it just feels like such a strange way to deal with a very legit problem by just kind of trying to control the reaction themselves instead of really dealing with the realities of what they did and how impactful that was to a lot of gamers. I mean, we're talking about 14 million plus gamers who are into buying games physically, who just, like we said that episode, they got punched in the face. Yep. And instead of addressing that in a very clean and concise and consumer-friendly way, they've decided, well, let's just not deal with all that. Let's just kind of create a narrative that this is okay. And the fact that they're going that far is, to me, a new low for PlayStation. I haven't seen them do anything like this when they have ever received backlash. And so this is a game that I don't like to see them play. And honestly, if they're going to do more things like this, then it just gives credence to the fact that the PlayStation that we knew was gone and that they are less interested in doing what's right for their community and more interested in doing what's right for themselves. Yeah. And that's just sad to see, man.
Especially when all they have to do is be more open and give us a little bit more information as to what exactly is happening and why are they doing this and why now. That's all they have to do. But they decided to take the hard route, and go crazy with this AI stuff. Insane.
Yeah, and I think also to your point, it's not going to work. Social media is such a small corner of the broader PlayStation community. And even if they tried to do this and they send their bots out to X and Reddit and all these different places, it doesn't account for the casual gamer who finds this out at their local GameStop and just goes, okay, well, I don't think I can rock with PlayStation anymore. And
Right.
It doesn't really matter if the bots are out there saying, no, it's actually great. Digital only is where the future is. And it doesn't matter because the Joe Blow gamer is going to hear that and make a decision that's best for themselves. And it may lead to people walking away from the brand, maybe not in mass, because I think we both agree that PlayStation is going to still be PlayStation throughout it all, but it is going to turn away gamers. So to me, this effort just seems really short-sighted.
And especially all they have to do is kind of do a deep dive into social medias, and they'll know that people who are already defending PlayStation are getting bombarded with replies about, calling them bootlickers, that Shawn Michaels meme when he's sucking a dick, that one. All they have to do is check in and realize that it doesn't matter how many AI bots you have out there, no matter how eloquent your tweets are or how you're trying to sound like someone who is passionate about PlayStation. It doesn't matter because the proof is there. All you have to do is do a little bit of a search and realize that the majority of people are not buying into this. They don't like this, and there's nothing you can say to make them like it. Maybe make them understand it if you're, like I said, a little more open, but liking it, that's what they're trying to do. And that's not going to work. That's not going to work, period.
Yeah, and to your point, that brings us to the second thing that kind of has developed over the last few weeks, or in a certain lens hasn't developed, which is the fact that Sony has yet to offer any clarity, to your point, on how ending physical disc production will impact their consumers. They've offered no official statements, no FAQs, no disc to digital programs, or any insight at all really on whether their next gen hardware will have optional disc drives, kind of like the modular approach that they have with PlayStation 5. Instead, they just kind of simply resumed normal social media posting, but the community isn't having that. They are getting community noted on Twitter. Pretty much so damn near anytime they post anything. They're community noting like the anti-consumer nature of killing physical discs and so forth. So the community is definitely not taking this sitting down, and they're not just kind of breezing past it because a few weeks have gone by. I'm proud to see that people have not let up. It's just kind of sad to see that Sony has not, to our earlier points, just not taken that and gone, okay, we got to do something here.
Well, it shows the massive disconnect between Sony and its consumers because of the simple fact that this is a seismic change in how we are going to consume games. And they thought they were just going to release a statement and then that's it. Nobody was going to ask questions. We're not going to have any sort of like, oh, by the way, this is why it's happening. The fact that they weren't even prepared for that shows how disconnected they are to their actual consumers, that they didn't even realize that. I'm sure they thought it was going to be a big deal, but not to the point where they had nothing prepared. And it's how many weeks now and still nothing? Who's working there? Who are these people?
It's baffling, dude. It really is, because I think when you make a decision this seismic, you think it's a no-brainer that you're going to get some kind of like, here's how this is going to work for you. Here's how we're going to make this transition easy for you. Here's how we're still going to make this a seamless experience for you as a consumer. And they haven't really done that at all. In fact, they've already kind of proven that going digital will ultimately lead to higher prices. It's not in our docket here, but one of the things that I saw is that they will be doing kind of dynamic pricing for certain regions now.
I saw that, yeah.
And it's like, okay, here we go. This is exactly what the fear was, and it's already happening. And it's not even 2028 yet. There's still physical discs you can buy, and they're already like, you know what, we can't wait to screw these people over. God. Let's start ripping people off now. And so to see that, but not see official statements or clarifications or FAQs or programs of some sort from disc to digital, that's where it's like, all right, man, what the fuck kind of mustache twirling shit is this? You know what I mean? What kind of muhaha ass shit is this in these corporate offices, dude? It's crazy.
There is no doubt in my mind that whenever the PlayStation 6 launches, the games will be 80 plus, period, from the jump. Bad times.
But it's interesting we talk about like the software though, because the third thing we got to talk about is that this backlash is reportedly scaring off paying publishers from promoting their games on PlayStation's social media accounts. With PlayStation social channels like currently flooded with criticism, those paid promotions are really getting buried beneath backlash directed at Sony rather than anything around the games themselves. So there have been anonymous sources that have cited that some developers are questioning whether the premium marketing is still worth it if their announcements continue to be overshadowed by the negativity towards PlayStation. And similarly, there's an indie studio called Eat Pant Games, which is a fantastic name, by the way. They just put out a launch trailer on PlayStation's official YouTube account for their upcoming game. However, almost all of the video's 400 plus comments, Pablo, were related to the death of physical discs rather than the game itself. Yep. So this is one of those instances where this is the type of thing that I don't think PlayStation was thinking about. This is not just impacting you. This is like genuinely getting in the way of all these other industry partners that you have that want to synergize with you as a brand and can't because you did something so egregious that we can't even focus on the actual games anymore. That's crazy, dude.
They overvalued tribalism a little bit because back in the day, we picked our consoles based on games or even the console itself, even how it looked, aesthetics, right?
True.
Now people are picking consoles based on the fact that they've made that plastic box their personality. And so I think Sony overvalued that, thinking it doesn't matter what we do, these people are just going to sit here and take it. And the fact that they're not, and the fact that all these, unfortunately, these independent studios and even major studios who are promoting games with PlayStation are now suffering, that's on Sony. And I don't blame the people going in on those comments. It's unfortunate for Eat Pant Games, but that's just the way these things have to happen in order to kind of, demand change. Nothing is going to happen, but I would say it's better for people to know, Sony to know what they've done, because they need to fix something. They need to, if they don't have a program in mind, that's something that it needs to start coming into fruition now.
And it's not just impacting the indies of the world, it's also impacting their own first parties. I mean, Insomniac put out a cinematic trailer for Wolverine, and guess what people are talking about? Not Wolverine.
That's
not talking about Wolverine at all. They're talking about, I want physical discs, no disc, no buy. Now, obviously, this will be out before they end physical disc production, so they don't mean it in this specific case with this specific game, but this is what's happening, right? So it's not just impacting third-party partners, it's impacting what's happening in-house. So it just gets to a point where it's like, how much bleeding do you want to do to watch your own studios get absolutely torched for no other reason than because they are associated with you? That's a whole different ballgame. And
absolutely,
it's so befuddling that even in the face of that, your marquee game coming out this holiday is getting thrown under the bus. How many more times can you watch that happen before you go, all right, y'all, emergency meeting time?
Well, and then Wolverine launches, right? And they'll have launch trailers, they'll have coverage. And if that's going to continue even then, that can hurt, maybe not a lot of sales, but that can hurt a percentage of the game itself, because promotion is either they pull back on it, and they're not showing it as much because they're afraid of what the comments might say, or it's completely overshadowed. I had no idea Insomniac released a cinematic trailer for Wolverine. All I've been hearing is about PlayStation and how they killed disc media. So that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's not a coincidence. It's just taking over everything. But our last thing about this is that a lot of the talk, and we already kind of knew this, but a lot of the talk around the demand of physical games being kind of low, in many people's eyes has been overblown, because in a recent example, Cold Symmetry, which is the studio behind the upcoming Mortal Shell 2, just announced that the demand for the PS5 physical Revered Edition of Mortal Shell 2 has exceeded expectations, which has sparked the community to, of course, keep pushing back against the notion that digital is king and that physical discs are very much in demand, even for non-mainstream titles like this one. So that was awesome to see just in general, because a lot of people are excited for this specific game in particular, but it does kind of give credence to the fact that we all think that physical is just this antiquated relic. And even though a lot of us are admittedly digital first, you still see things like this happen that make you go, you see what I'm saying, Sony?
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
There's definitely a market for physical, and I don't think that the argument against physical was that nobody is buying it, period. It's just more people are buying digital. But that doesn't mean that you have to kill it like this, because there's a lot of people who buy physical. There are people who buy physical specifically for a special edition,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
So I've bought a few Nintendo games for value or just for collection purposes. The physical is a permanent stay in other medias. There's no reason why it should not exist within video games, specifically because it still sells. People are still doing the thing with that. They're still buying. People are very upset for a reason. It's far beyond just the physical copy, but also about ownership, also about, the fact that they're taking choice away. There's literally no positive for doing this. So, and these studios are out here, they're going to suffer too, because that's more money for them. A special edition is more money for them. And it's just a sad state of affairs all around, brother.
Yeah. For now, that is where we're at in terms of the physical disc saga, but we will continue to report in if any new developments hit regarding this whole situation. But in the meantime, we will move on to a nice little palate cleanse, because at this point in time, we can definitely use an injection of positivity when it comes to PlayStation. So we are going to do a little segment called the Mount Rushmore of all things PlayStation. So we have broken this down into 4 different Mount Rushmores. One for PlayStation hardware, one for PlayStation first-party franchises, dead or alive, one for PlayStation protagonists, and one for PlayStation villains. So we're going to go through each of our Mount Rushmores, and as you listen on, feel free to think of what your own Mount Rushmore would be for each of these. But we'll preface this by saying these are personal Mount Rushmores.
Thank you.
You might see some omissions, okay? We don't want you to get all tight in the butt if you hear something that doesn't sit well with you in the spirit. We're just telling you what kind of fans we are, and look, that's all we can do.
It's like a psychological profile of the PlayStation fan here. This is going to tell you exactly who we are as PlayStation gamers.
Yeah, man. Well, let's start with the Mount Rushmore of PlayStation hardware. Pablo, I'm going to give you first stab here. What is your Mount Rushmore? Talk to me.
Start off with PlayStation 2. I mean, that's the GOAT. Possibly one of the best consoles of all time, if not the best console of all time. It was a machine that spit out masterpieces. You got your Final Fantasies, the birthplace of God of War. You got Kojima all over that thing, spitting out beautiful, beautiful games. That is one of the best consoles of all time, and my first foray into PlayStation. That was my first PlayStation console. The next one is the only console on my list that is there because of the aesthetics, and that's the PS3 Super Slim. That's the classic white with the top slide. That is the only console.
Clean. Yeah, that was clean.
That is the only console PlayStation's ever made that's pretty. PlayStation hardware is either boring as hell or ugly as shit.
Hey, that base PS3 got ass. That's all I'm going to say, dude. That thing is
a big
that thing is cheeked up. But this is a beautiful one, man. I look at pictures of this super slim one all the time. I'm like, damn, it's clean.
Yeah. I had a PS3 and something happened to it. I can't remember what it was. And I went to go buy another one, and this was on sale. And I was like, this is clean. It was crazy, crazy, crazy. I remember because that's when my sister's first son was born. I bought this, that memory is like pretty clear for me.
Nice.
All right. The next console on my list is the PS Vita. This is all about the connections I made with friends. I played this at work. We played a lot of games on it. We played Grand Theft Auto, the online mode that they had for the Liberty City stories, SOCOM,
Fireteam Bravo.
Fireteam Bravo. Yeah, played 1 and 2. Love the hell out of that. That was a beautiful piece of machine that was probably a little out before its time, right? It was just a little too early. And lastly, anything on the PS Vita, Marco? Did you have that at all?
I never had a PS Vita. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me because I feel so bad. I just didn't get to it, man. I tried it out at a kiosk at GameStop, and I'm like, this is cool. I fell out of handheld gaming for a while, and I'm like, I don't know where I would actually use this. So I'm like, it's dope. I like the way games look on it, but I just didn't feel like it was connecting with me, man. It didn't do it.
The Vita suffered because PlayStation cut the budget off of it, because it had really cool games. It had a God of War game. It even had an Uncharted game that was specific and exclusive to the Vita. This was supposed to be the 1B to the 1A, of the home console, and it just didn't get that. But yeah, did you have the PSP?
I did.
Oh, okay. But my last Mount Rushmore of PlayStation hardware is the PS4. I mean, you can't get much better than that. I said that PS2 is probably one of the greatest consoles of all time. PS4 is on its heels. For many, it's probably the best console they've ever had. Incredible games on there. Kind of the full power of the first party of PlayStation. What we know them for today, why we love them, all came into play with the PS4. What a great machine. That's when PlayStation was lovable. That's when you could give him a big old hug. But yeah, that's where I'm at, brother.
Nice. So you got PS2, PS3, Super Slim, Classic White version, PS Vita, PS4. That's a nice little list, man. That's a nice list. My Mount Rushmore starts with the PS1. I gotta have the console that started it all. That console blew me away from the moment I first laid eyes on it. at a Sound Advice store back in the day. I just
Advice,
couldn't get over it. I wanted a Sega Saturn so bad before I knew the PlayStation 1 existed. And I'm glad that Sony saved me from certain doom, because the Saturn was the Saturn and the PlayStation 1 was the PlayStation 1. And I think that just says it all.
You're a Genesis kid through and through, man.
Yeah, man. So I was Sega McGee. So the fact that I jumped ship to PlayStation says a lot about just kind of what I thought of the platform at the time and what they were doing in terms of just introducing weird and strange and oddly cool games, and the home of new genres like the birth of survival horror started here, like things like that. And then of course Final Fantasy migrating from Nintendo to PlayStation, and then of course Metal Gear. The list of classics just goes on, and it's just a lot of good memories there. Wrestling games was a big deal to me too, even though they were pretty bad on PS1. The SmackDowns came out, WWF Warzone came out, WWF Attitude came out. You would come over and play it a little bit. So it's just too many good memories there. So that's my first Mount Rushmore list for sure. PS2, if the PS1 is the console that started it all, the PS2 is the console that had it all. I mean, every genre you can think of, they just had it in droves. And not to say that the OG Xbox was a slouch at all, or the GameCube wasn't really pulling its weight. Those were great consoles, but when you got a PS2, you felt like all of your bases were covered, from JRPGs to sports titles and everything in between. It left no stone unturned, and it just had the most dynamic catalog, and everything that made PlayStation, I think, what it is today as a brand really got solidified, the PS2, and so I absolutely loved it. I like the chunky butt PS2. I don't like the slim PS2.
Yeah. I had
slim
the chunky
PS2
butt one,
is all right, but something about that little flimsy tray, you had to press down on it. Like I always feel like I was going to break it. So I'm like, I need that fat ass PS2, man. I need the one that's got the BBL on it. You know what I'm saying to you?
I feel you.
Up next, I got the PSP. I loved the PSP. And the PSP was such a clunky, counterintuitive, weird little thing, but I just fell in love with it, man. I got into this as I was getting into my college years, and I remember bringing it with me in my backpack, and I'd just be chilling, and I would bust out that and play Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, or I would play Metal Gear Acid.
Classic.
Man, there's just so many good experiences there, and it was just so cool to like have this handheld that can connect to the internet at the time. That was like a whole new thing. You can buy those little UMD movie discs and watch your movies on there too. So there's just something that I thought was inherently charming about that device, and I had to have one. So I had to throw some love in there on my Mount Rushmore for that. And then PS4, it was just that everyman console. It was just the one that everyone had to have. There's a reason why we have so many PS4 squatters in 2026 that just won't upgrade, because the PS4 was almost too good for its own good. It was really, to me, what the PS2 was all those years ago. Just refined, more powerful, and more polished than what I think the PS3 was, because I didn't enjoy the PS3 generation very much at all. So I felt like they finally got back into their rhythm with this console, and the games were great. Their first party studios were cooking, and I felt like we were really starting to see what I thought was going to be just kind of the rest of history with PlayStation. And the fact that we're here now and we're not in that kind of rhythm anymore is so heartbreaking. But man, that generation was so golden, man. So I got PS1, PS2, PSP, PS4 in my Mount Rushmore. So let's move on. Let's get to the next one, man, because we got Mount Rushmore of PlayStation first-party franchises, but they can be dead or alive. So, man, talk to me. What's on your Mount Rushmore?
I got Bloodborne up here, man. Technically first party, right? PlayStation owns the IP, all that. Yep. So, I mean, this is a game that took me many, many years to understand and get what people were saying about it in terms of like it being one of the best Souls games of all time. And it really is. It's only second to Elden Ring. Miyazaki's like magnum opus. It's his perfect game. At least that's how he sees it. And it is just an incredible experience of a game. I love this game to pieces. I only have 2 platinums. Yeah, I'm that guy. I don't platinum games. Don't judge me. I have Spider-Man and I have Bloodborne. That's what I have. I love this game to pieces. It's absolutely incredible, from its aesthetics to its combat, world building. Just a great game. If you love Souls games and you've not played Bloodborne, you have not lived. I guarantee you that.
You ain't lying.
The Last of Us, man. This is the this is kind of a mainstay here in the LeBoy household when we talk about some of the greatest games of all time. The Last of Us is the game that grew with us, maturity-wise, in terms of how stories were written. Joel and Ellie, just a perfect pair. Love this game. It is amongst the best stories ever told in video games, and I stand by that, even though people want to be critical and be naysayers and be contrarians. Nah, man. The Last of Us is one of the best stories in video games, period. Then we got Sly Cooper, man, the most underrated mascot that PlayStation has. It is the game that takes all the conventions of a platformer, and what it does is turns it on its head with a interesting kind of play mechanics. You kind of sneaking around and being this thievius raccoonist, this little raccoon who is out to steal stuff, take from the rich, give to the poor type stuff. But the mechanics of the game, the way the game plays, it's like nothing else that PlayStation has ever done, and they've decided to abandon my child. Hopefully we get Sly Cooper back here. This next one, people are going to be scratching their heads, but go scratch away. Get that dandruff off your shoulders when you're done. And that's MLB The Show. For many, many years, I've called the PlayStation the MLB The Show box because it was exclusive to PlayStation for many years. And that's not derogatory. That's one of the best sports games of all time. I always had a PlayStation, regardless of where I was in terms of my gaming, or if I was playing more on Xbox or Nintendo. I always had it for one game and one game only, and that's MLB The Show.
All right, man. Very eclectic list. You got Bloodborne, The Last of Us, Sly Cooper, MLB The Show. You're checking all kinds of boxes there, so I think that's a pretty dope list. My Mount Rushmore is as follows. So number one, I got Gran Turismo. I'm not a car guy by any stretch of the imagination, and I certainly don't get my rocks off to sim racers, but something about Gran Turismo just connects with me, dude. I don't know what it is. There's something very showroomy and very luxe about the whole Gran Turismo experience. You can really feel like Polyphony loves cars, and that love of cars is somehow infectious, even to people like me who are just like, oh, that car looks cool. So I have a lot of great memories playing the old school ones on PS1. GT2 is probably my favorite of the series, but I've played pretty much all of them, all the way up to GT7, which I also put a lot of hours into. And for some reason, this game is just relaxing to me. It's calming. I don't get all bent out of shape about the sim racing mechanics of it all. I just go in there to have fun and drive some cool looking cars with a great presentation, top of the line visuals, and in that sense this franchise has never disappointed. So I just love this series, and it's probably one of the franchises I wish I had space to talk more about, because it's hard to talk Gran Turismo when you talk PlayStation, even though it's like synonymous with the brand. It's so much easier to talk God of War and all these other big single player franchises that you forget something as pivotal to the brand as this one here with GT.
That's how I feel about MLB The Show. We'd never talk about it on the pod because people don't care,
Yeah, they're gonna roll their eyes. Yeah. 100%. Up next for me is The Last of Us. Same reasons as you. This story really did grow with me as I moved through all different ages and stages of my life, including stepping into parenthood for the first time and raising a daughter who is rambunctious, not quite to Ellie levels of craziness, but she's something. And so playing this game in 2026 and beyond always shows me something new that helps me relate to not only where Ellie is going as a child, but also who Joel is as someone who lost what he lost and is trying to find his place in the world other than just being this brutal killer. So just peeling back more of those layers over the years and seeing so much more beneath the surface is what makes this the franchise that just keeps on giving to me. And then The Last of Us Part 2, which I think took way too much slack for being what it was. And then Abby getting all that backlash, which I think I'm a Team Abby kind of guy. I don't know about y'all, but
me too.
Look, hey, but I love the fact that the franchise does that kind of thing where it gets people talking, it gets people buzzing, and it creates these wars between Camp Ellie and Camp Abby. I think that just speaks to how well written it is and what it's done to just continue to push that envelope with what you can do with single player storytelling.
Absolutely.
SOCOM is up next on my list. Man, this is what got me into multiplayer shooters, multiplayer anything, honestly. I was more of a single-player guy until SOCOM came along, and I finally decided to give it a try after reading so much good stuff about the franchise, and I was blown away. It's not a franchise that has particularly aged the best, if you are one of those lucky few who can go back and play some of those older titles, but for what it was in its time, it was revolutionary, and it was something that really brought a lot of the PlayStation community together. I had a clan of my own back in the day, and we would meet up every single night, staying up till 4 a.m, playing together, laughing, talking about life. And it was just one of those moments where lightning in a bottle. You know, it was just one of those times where it was about the game, but it also wasn't just about the game. So that kind of thing, much to your point about playing Fireteam Bravo with your friends, it was more than just about, oh, we're playing a fun SOCOM game. It was also this social thing that really brought us together. So in many ways, it's my Halo 2 kind of moment. You know, it's I didn't have that same connection with that multiplayer base, but this was my version of that on PlayStation. So yeah. And then last but not least, Wipeout, a franchise that is unfortunately gone, but man, one of the highest rated franchises in PlayStation history, one of the best all-around racing games of all time. I mean, this is taking the best things about F-Zero, which is the speed and the style, and then taking the best of Mario Kart, which is the combat, and bringing them together to form something that was really cool, something very sci-fi, something with a lot of mystique, and really spoke to what the original PlayStation image was back in the day of being this weird, mysterious, futuristic thing that just felt like it was that next step up in the world of gaming. I miss it dearly. I still play the HD collection that they do have available on PS5 right now, and it's just bittersweet. It's one of those franchises, much like your Sly Cooper comparison. Why did y'all let this go? I don't get it. Really, same thing can be said about SOCOM as well, but that's my list. I got Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, SOCOM, and Wipeout.
If you know Marco is specifically SOCOM and Wipeout, that's a Marco-ass list if I ever saw one. That's for sure.
That's me, McGee, right there. Let's move on, though, man. Let's talk Mount Rushmores of PlayStation protagonists. And let me kick it to you first, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, first up, Solid Snake. I think this was the first time that I really kind of connected with a character, you know, in terms of how cool he was, and just he's a unique character to begin with in terms of how he talks and delivers those lines, and just him in that world. I mean, I think that he is one of the most compelling characters I've ever played. Cared for him so much throughout the series, and I can extend this beyond Solid Snake and also Big Boss. All those characters are not all one and the same, but they all kind of have a special place in my heart. So I love Solid Snake specifically. Next up is Kratos. I battled with this one because I am not the biggest God of War fan, but I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't a pretty big fan of the original 3 games, right? I thought those games were really cool, specifically 3 when it ramped up and you start that game the way you started. That blew my mind. And Kratos might not be the most in-depth character in the first 3, but he was a total badass looking for revenge, and he was out here killing them gods, bro, slaying the chains of chaos. That shit was cool, man. The game was cool. I thought he was a great character then. Then we got Sly Cooper. I love me Sly Cooper. Again, he's just a unique character within all the mascot platformers. I just think it's more about the game, but I think Sly Cooper is one of the coolest mascot that PlayStation has, and I just love his complete look, his aesthetic. He's dope as fuck. And then last on the list here is Ellie. You know, seeing someone in the game and like Ellie and seeing her grow from this little child who is, you know, definitely independent and is worried about the world in a way that is unique because she is immune to the thing that everybody is afraid of, right? And then seeing her, how she grew, and maybe not for the best in The Last of Us Part 2, and how she was kind of overcome by vengeance, but seeing that character and that growth, I think that's one of the best written characters, and seeing that line from A to Z and seeing her how she kind of navigates through that world, I thought that it was incredible, and I love her, and I hope I get to see her again if we ever see another sequel to The Last of Us. So yeah, it's Solid Snake, Kratos, Sly Cooper, and Ellie for me.
Yeah, I can't really push back against that list. That's really good stuff, man. And we have some things that are kind of in the same realm, but I'll start with mine. And one of the things we have in common is Solid Snake. This is not, of course, a PlayStation franchise, but this is one of those characters that was synonymous with PlayStation when Metal Gear Solid did come to PS1. Yep. And I think just we all sort of mentally associated this character with PlayStation for so many years. That's why it's here. But yeah, this was the first character that I ever really became a huge fan of. And this was a character that just was so undeniably awesome and had so much depth and so much nuance to his personality, to his motives, to the way that he approaches problem solving, the way that he overcomes obstacles, and then just the way that he was able to somehow find friends on the battlefield and wrestle with demons. It's like one of those things where man, there's a lot to learn from this character. And it's much in the same way that The Last of Us kind of grew with me. The character of Solid Snake has too. So I've come back to those games many, many times to just see more about who he is and understand why he kind of works the way he works. And he's just iconic to me in every way, shape, and form. I've got Joel from The Last of Us here. It was a hard pick between him and Ellie, but as I mentioned earlier, for as long as I've been in fatherhood, the more I see how a man can go from being the cool, loving, single dad to someone who is cold, brutal, and pessimistic and cynical about the world. You know, I can totally understand how a man like that can be driven to such lows when you lose something as important to you as your own child. And then here comes this kid, Ellie, who just sort of comes in and is undeniably Ellie in every way that we know her to be. And watching her just slowly but surely, brick by brick, kind of bring his wall down and form that connection with him. And then just seeing the way that he softened, seeing the way that he found himself again, that he found more purpose, he found more happiness, more joy. That story is one of the more special ones I've seen. Heartbroken that he's not around. That was certainly a decision that I still don't feel great about, but I understand it in terms of what that did to kind of set up Ellie's character. But Joel still stuck with me all these years for that reason, and he's among my favorites, man. Troy Baker killed it in that role too. Excellent work, brought that guy to life, and I'm a fan for life, man. Another character that's not part of PlayStation, but again, synonymous with PlayStation, especially back in the day, Lara Croft here. She, to me, was Miss PlayStation for so many years. She represented a really interesting turning of the page in gaming, where games could be more than just fun, but they can also be demanding. They can also be a little sexy in certain ways. I mean, we all remember trying to find the nude raider cheat that was everyone was talking about, like, oh, what do you got to do before you jump in the pool in the manor, you know, like that kind of stuff. It just created such a you had to be there type of energy. Absolutely, to what she brought to the table. But the games also, I think, were really cool. Obviously, the franchise itself had its ups and downs. It's definitely rebounded in recent years with the latest trilogy, and of course where they're going next. But back then, Lara Croft was just the epitome of cool. She was like this femme fatale meets Indiana Jones, and it's like, man, I didn't think I wanted something like this, but it's just fucking working. And so she kind of snuck up and became, to me, like the quintessential female protagonist of PlayStation for a long, long time. And some would argue that she hasn't been beat since. Now, my last character on my Mount Rushmore is more of a, not quite a deep cut, but kind of a supporting character. I had Nathan Drake here for a while, but I'm like, you know what? I can't put Nathan Drake here because I just like Sully more.
It's true.
So Sully's on my damn list. He's on my Mount Rushmore.
That's pretty dope. I like that.
Yeah, I just think he's one of those guys who really helps show us who Nathan Drake really is. And if he wasn't in that franchise, Pablo, I don't think that there would be nearly as much dimensionality to Nathan Drake's character. I think he'd be fairly one note. I think there'd be no personality. There'd be no growth. Sully was definitely there to be that father figure for Nate, but he was also there to keep Nate on solid ground. And the conversations that they had and the banter that they'd had when they were running around together doing certain missions, that's what sticks out to me the most about that series, more than any of the bombast, any of the set pieces, or any of the quips that Nathan Drake himself has. It was really Sully being that anchor for the franchise, and I haven't seen too many supporting characters do as much heavy lifting as Sully does in that series. So that's why he's on my list. So a little bit of a weird pick there, but I just couldn't fight it, man. I'm like, you know what? He's got to be here, even though it's not the popular pick. So I got Solid Snake, Joel, Lara Croft, and Sully on my Mount Rushmore. Now, let's round this out with Mount Rushmore of PlayStation villains. Talk to me, man. What you got?
I'm going to start off with Zeus. I thought Zeus, the way they portrayed him in that series was absolutely amazing. It kind of veered off the path of what people think when they think about Greek gods, you know, how they're beloved and how they are the good guys. Here, they all are painted as evil. Zeus specifically, always undermining, always getting in the way of Kratos, always basically betraying him at every turn. And it was cathartic as hell when you got up there and you were able to pull that man's wig off. It was brutal. I loved it. It was awesome. And you could only feel that way if they did the villain correctly. You know, if you felt like, I got here, finally this is what I'm doing, and you can only get there because of the writing. I thought they did a really good job with that. Next one is not a deep cut, but he's not specifically the villain of the entire game, but he's definitely a villain. And we're talking about David from The Last of Us. You know, you have Ellie out there trying to help Joel because he got pretty injured. So she's out there doing her own thing, and she meets David. And you can't trust this man. You can't trust anybody out here. But they go through some certain things where they bond a little bit because they survived a specific attack. And then he goes back to, you know, the camp, and you realize that he's a pedophile cannibal who got Ellie for either, you know, food or do things to her, you know, and that twist, even though you knew you can't trust this man, where they went with him was so like disgusting that I couldn't believe that they did it. And that kind of, for me, solidified where the maturity of the game and how they were not going to pull any punches when it came to how they were going to portray this world. And I love that. And I think David is a perfect embodiment of them telling you, this is the game. This is where we're going with the series. So I love that. And then we got Suguru Kamoshida. I guess I hate people who want to prey on little kids. This is the
welcome to the club.
This is the opening boss of Persona 5, and I think it's the most shocking boss for me because I wasn't really familiar with what Persona was, you know, and I get into it and I'm like, are they doing the thing with the PE coaches trying to get with the young girls? Like, man, that was a shocker. And I thought that this boss, even though he opened the game, it was hard for me to really any other boss really get into it as much as I did because I hated him so much that everything else felt petty in terms of what his crimes were. So great boss. I loved him, and I thought that was a really, really interesting way to open the game. Kind of set expectations outright. And then I have a secret villain here. Marco, are you ready for this one? Okay,
let's get it. What is it?
PlayStation leadership.
Yo, is so stupid.
Is the most evil of all villains when it comes to PlayStation.
I knew you were going to do some stupid shit with this. Okay, so y'all, on the docket, he's got his list, and then on the bottom it says secret villain for his 4th Mount Rushmore, and I'm like, there's going to be some pure fuckery going on with this one, and
I mean, look,
he didn't disappoint, man. Talk to me. What is this?
We're talking about the villains of PlayStation, and they deserve a spot in the Mount Rushmore. You really can't put anybody else, but I mean, I would put all the faces of leadership, Jim Ryan, you know, in the villains, if you let me. But I just feel like right now, I think it's apropos to the moment where, you know, this is kind of surpassing video games just in terms of how you play them or the software. This is more about the entire industry and how they're affecting this change with little regard to consumers. And so I hate that this is what's happening. But yeah, that's it, man. That's where they land, right there on Mount Rushmore. They're going to have to do a lot to get chiseled out and put maybe the boss or something like that, or Abby, who I had on my list for many times.
You passed up on the boss and Abby for Jim Ryan, Herman Holst. All them people, man.
Yeah.
Damn. I get it. And it's funny that you did that because when I was looking at like PlayStation villains throughout history, I was looking online and stuff to see what kind of things were out there. I did see a lot of people say Jim Ryan.
I did have Jim Ryan, but I'm like, man, all of it, because Jim Ryan's not even here right now. This thing's going downhill.
Yeah, man. I get it. But you was still a wild boy for that one. Okay, so my Mount Rushmore of PlayStation villains starts with Thor from modern God of War. I did not love God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok as much as other people have, but I will say the one standout to me that really, really won me over to the point where I almost wished that we got a spin-off game as him was Thor himself, because the way that his relationship was with Odin was so complex and so deep-seated with resentment and hatred and disappointment. And then, of course, you talk about his drinking problem and the way that that impacted his family, but then also just his brutish power and the fact that even at his worst, he was able to literally kill Kratos in that opening fight and then shock him back to life, which was one of the best moments, I think, from the entire God of War series, really, including the old games. So anytime he was on screen, it was always compelling to me because everything from his demeanor to just his look, being the last thing you would expect a character like Thor to look like. Just this rundown, burly guy with a big old belly. And
big old beer belly.
and a lot of baggage. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me was like, wow, what a really complex character that is so better than Odin from God of War Ragnarok. That's a whole nother can of worms I won't open. But yeah, this was to me the standout of that game in particular.
Not to mention the way he was teased at the end of God of War, where you go back home and he just shows up. That was dope. Yeah,
I was so excited too. Yeah, man, that's a good point. Up next for me is Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal. This is that classic PlayStation villain energy. It is this clown with a flaming head. He's kind of cursed. He's got this crazy backstory. So he was so dynamic in ways that I think really gave Twisted Metal a lot of interesting lore to work with instead of just being this, crazy car combat game. But it also gave a lot of dimension to just what motivates weirdos like this, sickos like this to get out there and do what they're doing. And just the look, the aesthetic, of course, his vehicle being the ice cream truck, and just how iconic that was for the time. I mean, Twisted Metal was one of my favorite franchises growing up. It's a shame that it's not around anymore. It was going to be, because there was a live service game coming for it, and then it got canceled because why do something smart? But yeah, I mean, I just love this character. I thought he was cool and just embodied that smash mouth, no nonsense villainy that I think PlayStation did so well back then. I got Sephiroth here. I mean, to me, this is the villain of all villains, in my personal opinion, in all of video games. I think it's just enough of the Japanese RPG villainy mixed with a little bit of like the cool, still like him sort of thing. Like he just looks cool. I remember just seeing him for the first time in Final Fantasy VII on PS1 and the infamous scene where he's burning down the village and he slowly turns around and looks at you while he's standing in the flames. I'll never forget that, because to me, that was the epitome of cool villain, and I never looked at villains as being cool before I saw Sephiroth. And I think that the new remakes have done fairly well at bringing out a lot of that villainy out of him and making him just as cool as he always was. But there was something really magical about that original Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth that was so captivating. And whenever he got on screen, your heart stopped, because you knew something fucked up is going to happen. He is going to get in the head of Cloud. He is going to make things difficult, and he is going to be OP as hell. And then, of course, the last boss fight against him from the original game. How many times I've played One Winged Angel on my Spotify, just remembering that moment and what it felt like to finally beat this seemingly invincible villain. And it was just one of those times where I'm like, it doesn't get better than this in terms of villains. But he's got to be here. But there is one more name on the list. It's not Jim Ryan, but it is Revolver Ocelot from Metal Gear Solid. This is such a fascinating character if you're a Metal Gear Solid fan, because you think about him in Snake Eater, he's kind of still figuring himself out. Big Boss is, against him, but kind of showing him the ropes at the same time. And you can tell that he's starting to idolize Big Boss and really want to follow in the footsteps of Big Boss. And then he goes in on this triple agent thing where he's just working behind the scenes against everybody and also working for Big Boss. And he's just maintaining all these different things across all these different countries. And then he's working for different units. You get to MGS1, he's working for Liquid. And then he kind of breaks free of that. He's put Liquid's arm on himself and just starts pretending he's Liquid Ocelot, and then he's doing the doppelganger thing all the way to MGS4. There were so many different times throughout his arc where it could have completely fallen apart, and there were a few times where it damn near did. Especially with MGS4, it was like, all right, man, what are we doing here? But I still think that he brought out the best in Solid Snake as a character, and without him going down the path that he went and being what he was, we wouldn't get that final redemption arc of Solid Snake the way that we did in MGS4. Despite all my problems with that game, I think the way that last battle took place,
that was
and the
epic.
way that there was like a mutual respect after the fight was over, that to me was like, okay, wow, that's a really special character that I think needs a little bit more love than the Liquid Snakes, than the Psycho Mantises, which are all iconic. Cyborg Ninja,
absolutely.
But there's just something about Ocelot that, again, when you talk about anchoring a franchise in terms of villainy, I think he did such a great job. And it was a testament to Kojima, of course, taking some bold swings with a character like this, but I think it paid off in the end.
As he tends to do.
Yeah, man, it does. But yeah, that's my list. I got Thor, Sweet Tooth, Sephiroth, and Revolver Ocelot.
Great list, man. Great list.
So appreciate that. But that is going to do it for our Mount Rushmore of PlayStation. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you're not throwing tomatoes at us, and that you are maybe thinking about what your own Mount Rushmores may be for each of those categories. But for now, that is going to do it for this week's episode of The PlayStation Effect. If you enjoyed the conversation, please be sure to subscribe before you head out. But until next time, stay safe, save often, and see you next week.
Peace out.